Hey, welcome back to Turntable Guy. On the bench today we have a Kenwood KD-2055. This series of turntables was affectionately known as the Rock due to its composite, rather marble-looking plinth. So I did a video on another KD-2055 probably a year or so back, and in that video I did not service the turntable. All I did was replace the rotten motor mounts. So what happens on these tables is, let me just take this lid off here. What happens is the motor is rather big and heavy, and it sits right under here. And it's suspended by, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 rubber mounts. And it basically hangs down to isolate it from the plinth, so it's nice and silent when it's running. And I guess the original rubber that Kenwood used back in the day eventually degrades, and it squishes down, compresses, and turns, hard like a rock. And what happens is the motor spindle goes down, so you're going to get some belt rubbing. And once it compresses and turns hard like a rock, all the noise dampening and vibration dampening properties of the original rubber obviously goes away, and the motor starts making a heck of a lot of noise. So my last video, which I will link in the description of this video, if you do have a 2055 with that issue, I do have a complete video on replacing the motor mounts with a new kit which is available. Okay. So that will be linked down there. And what's going to be interesting is, I haven't opened this one up yet, so we're going to see if this one needs it as well. We won't be doing that in this video. What I'll do is I'll tell the customer that his motor mounts are shot, and I'll ask him if he would like to do that or not. But in this case, in this video, we're gonna service the 2055 because I didn't do a servicing video on the last one. All right, so this is a belt drive semi-automatic turntable. That anti-skate felt a little funny. Yeah, so and it's got a spring-loaded auto return. We'll see this mechanism once I get it flipped over. This is a very, very heavy turntable. And that's due to this composite material plinth. And there's nothing particularly special about it, except that it has the noise dampening of this plinth, because it's absolutely not suspended. The feet are hard as a rock. There's no suspension on the platter or the arm. It's just all about weight here, almost kind of like a Technics 1200, where it's just about weight and vibration dampening with rubber on the 1200. This one is all about this plinth. Okay, so let's go about servicing this. So obviously we're going to remove our platter mat, and then we'll take off our belt. He just bought a new belt for this, so don't have to worry about that. So that's nice and new and good and tight. Okay, and this is part of the auto return, and this is actually the auto return spring setting. And if you find that you'd like the arm to return faster, what you do is you lift this and you turn the spring, and you can make a faster return, or you lift it and go to slower. Where the heck is slower? I forget how to do it. That should be center, right? So center, faster, or slower. Okay. So it depends what setting you want it at. We'll play with that. I'll just put it back where it was. And this is all part of the auto return here. And here's your motor, spindle. So that's going to get serviced. And we'll just take off our head shell. Ooh, that's a filthy stylus. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's got more dirt on it than I think I've ever seen before. That's absolutely horrible. Come on, guys. Clean your styluses. Or is there anything left? Okay, we'll check that later. Okay, and off with the counterweight. arm is locked, and we can put our dust cover back on. And this is one of the few turntables I say be careful when you're turning it over, because it's so heavy. I'm not going to say it's going to crack the dust cover, but it's heavy, and you're putting a lot of pressure on it. We're not going to be leaving it on its dust cover. We're just going to quickly service it. Just make sure that you take care when you're turning it over. All right, and it's missing a few screws on the bottom here. This thing's definitely been opened up before. A lot of the screw heads are stripped. Okay, let me get these screws out, and we'll pause. I'll be right back. Okay, yeah, several of those screws were stripped, so I'm glad I paused. All right, so here we go. We're going to remove this rather heavy, it looks like a particle board base. Comes off just like that to reveal our insides. Here's that spring auto return that I was playing. Oh, see how I moved it? And this is how you, I don't know if you can do it from the bottom here or not. Oh yeah, you can. So you lift it and then you turn it from the top, right? And it will adjust and put more tension on the spring. So when the record hits the, or the cartridge hits the end of the record, it'll come back fast or slower. So it's all spring driven. And as you can see, there's very little to this turntable. We have got a motor which is leaking oil, so you know this has never been serviced, or it's been serviced and somebody was really sloppy. Anyway, that oil smells kind of gross, so it's old. So you just have a motor. Here's your arm mechanism here. This is part of the auto return. Muting switch here. All right, so we definitely clean the muting switch. And up front here is just your how you start it. So how it started is that lever that was on the front there on the top. When you pull it, what you're doing is you're kind of charging up this spring-loaded mechanism here, and that will start play. And then once that's charged up, and depending on where you have the spring here, once the record trips at the end, that'll pull back, and that arm will return. I'll show you that one once we get it back up. But let's get our servicing out of the way here, and we're definitely gonna do the motor, and we're gonna examine our motor mounts. So let's zoom in a little bit on that motor area. We'll do a full motor service on it because, like I mentioned, I have not documented this turntable servicing, and my goal on this channel is to document as many brands and models as possible as they come in, so that if someone's looking for full servicing on a particular turntable that they own, hopefully it's on my channel. And if it's not on my channel, hopefully it's on somebody else's channel. All right, so here they are. Here are the motor mounts, and these are actually still rather supple. Now, are they great? Now, see, like, they're not great. This is what happens, right? They start to crumble with age. Now, this is the top part, so it's not a huge problem yet, but as you can see, they're starting to go. I don't want to play with them too much. You're just going to accelerate the degradation. But yeah, that's basically what happens here, and that kit resolves it. Okay, again, I will link that video. Check it out if you have one of these turntables with that issue, and I will let the customer know that these are probably due for replacement soon, and then he can decide to do what he likes. Here's your speed mechanism. Okay, basically it just moves the position of the belt on the spindle of the motor. All right, let's do a motor service. Now, let's see, I always love to see the dates on these. The 10th of May, 1976. Gotta love it, eh? So you want to remove this plate first. This is a bit gungy and dirty down here, obviously, because it sits on the outside. And you know what, I'm just going to, because I have a bad habit of forgetting where things go. So that's the way it sits. So I am going to put a little mark here and a little mark here. That way I know where it goes. Okay? And there goes my digital multimeter. Okay, so we'll just continue taking these off. Now you can't oil this motor from the top. It's got an oiling spot. As you can see, it says oil right there, but it's only going to lube the top bearing on this one. There's no second spot, and there's no tubes carrying oil to the bottom bearing. So this bottom bearing obviously needs servicing, right? So what you need to do is, you've got your top and your bottom. We need to remove these two nuts. I left my socket set outside in the garage, so I'm just going to do it with my trusty pliers. You seen that all right? No, I'm almost out of screen there. So we also have a ground here and a lock washer. Okay, so the lock washer, this is full of oil, eh? There's our ground, and then another washer that goes in the bottom. Kind of goes like that. Remove that. We'll do this one over here. You know what? I'm just going to make a little. I'm going to put a little mark here as well, because this is the ground side, so we remember that. Let's put a little dot here and a little dot here. That way I remember that's the ground. Not that it matters. Okay, so that's the bottom bearing. That should come right off now. There we go. Yeah, there's oil all over the place except where it needs to be, which is inside the actual bearing cap. Just a sloppy mess. All right, so the top one is still down. So you got two screws here, and let's put a couple marks there as well. And I'm just being overly anal here, but just to put everything back where it was. You don't have to do that. I thought that wasn't bolted down. Okay, there we go. This thing is a greasy mess. All right, so it comes the top bearing with the spindle. Okay, you don't have to remove the spindle. If you do want to, there's two tiny little screws here, and I will guarantee you that you will probably strip them because this is a very soft metal. It's probably brass, right? So you don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to. Okay, and if you're going to do it, make sure that those slots in the screws are very like sharp. That way you can get a good solid tiny jeweler's screwdriver in there to remove that. Okay, we're gonna lubricate the top bearing as it is. Okay, this is your magnet here. So have to worry about that. I'm just going to clean this a little bit. Just clean out our bottom. Okay, for lube, I'm using, as I showed you in my last video, I'm just using this new 3-in-1, whoops, 3-in-1 oil by 3-in-1. It's an actual motor oil, so this is my new oil of choice. I was running out of my old one, and I kind of like that oil. I don't want to use it as much as I was. And I can't find it anymore, the stuff I was using. So we're going to use this. This is readily available, and it's good for electric motors, right? So, okay, let's do our bottom bearing first. All right, so with this oil, I really hate the, I actually might take this oil and put it in a smaller oiler, because it's really, it's coarse, right? It comes out very heavy. Seeing that okay? Yep. So, just a drop. And you can clean off the spindle on the rotor here, just to make sure it's nice and clean. And then, same thing with the top bearing, okay? All you want to do is, well, you can do it from the top. I mean, really, you don't have to remove this one, but just to clean it. So just put a drop in there, and that's going to go around. And if you want to put a drop at the top where the actual bearing is itself, that's fine as well, okay? So you can just move that around. Just remove any excess, and you should be good to go. Nice and smooth. All right. Well, that's it. Your screws back in. See, I put this one in backwards. Not that it matters. Or did I? No, actually, you know what? I did that. No, that's correct. That's where I mark the ground. Because I'll forget. No, first goes this, which makes, it bites into the metal here. Gives you good, good contact. Actually, that ground is full of oil. Let's clean that. All right, and then got a lock washer and your nut. And the other side's a little easier. All you have is a lock washer and a nut. And you can screw it down. And then we'll tighten with the pliers. Just like that. Actually, I'm gonna hold it while I tighten it. This is why I should have brought my socket set back in. firm. This one's tight as well. That 3-in-1 oil has a very sweet smell to it. So if you gag easy when it comes to oils, boy, that's nice now. That's a nice smelling oil. All right. So our motor sat like that. I'm just going to clean this off as well so we don't contaminate the bearing with all this dirt. And where do we put that mark? There it is. So this went like that, right? So the motor went something like that. So let's pull this up. And line up our screw holes. And put these back in. Yeah, I keep looking at these motor mounts, and I'm thinking to myself, it's just a matter of time. Okay. There you go. That is how you service a KD-2055 motor. Great. All right, you know what's next here? Spindle bearing. Now, is this one from the top? Yeah, that one's from the top. Yeah, believe it or not, there's not a hell of a lot more to do on this turntable as far as servicing. We're going to do these, you see that okay? We're going to do the muting switch here, okay? So what you want is a little bit of your favorite contact cleaner. Spray a little deox. Okay, you don't need a lot. And you can use, you know, depending on how bad the muting switch is working or how great it's working, you can just use a little paper, okay? And you can actually, you can soak the paper as well, just like that. And just run it through the little contacts here. Okay, so you just go through the contacts with the paper. And it's just abrasive enough see how I'm getting through there? I'm just rubbing the deoxit on the two contacts. And that's what came off of it. See, so you're just cleaning those and making sure that you got good solid. It's like a relay almost, right? You want to make sure those contacts are clean. There. And that's what came off of there. Just a little bit of crap. So those should work well. All right, I'm going to button this up, and we'll turn it over. It's backwards, and be right back with you. Okay, we're back on our feet here. Time to do the spindle. You got a big nut holding it in here. Probably one of the easier ones to take care of. You know what? See how dumb I am sometimes? It comes in through the bottom. All right, lesson learned. Be right back. Is it just me, or does that look like some kind of machine gun bullet? What do you think? Anyway, here's our spindle and bearing here. There is one screw that holds a ground cable to it. Okay. This one's actually not that bad. There's a little ball bearing on the bottom. So take the spindle out of the bullet and give that a clean. Like I said, this one wasn't too bad. It looks like the factory used some kind of grease on this. It's really unpleasant looking, isn't it? All right, so you need a little bit of alcohol. And just clean that off. The ball bearing is attached somehow. Maybe it's press fit. Oh, no. See, I lied. There it is. And it's filthy. So I'm going to clean where it rides. Just getting in there. See? All that crap that comes out. Clean it all nice. Bearing itself is clean. It looks like it's a little bit my dog's being an asshole. Apologize. I just heard the threat from the wife that she's getting the spray. So that's pretty gross, eh? Sorry if that's not focusing, but it's very dirty in here. Especially at the bottom. There's a little divot where that ball bearing rides, and I can see that it's filthy. So you want to get that nice and clean before you re-oil it. Okay, so I'm going to try something new because it is supposedly perfectly fine for this. I'm going to use that same oil. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite oils. It's very slippery, shall we say. So I'm just going to put 3 drops in here. I'm going to drop the ball bearing. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put the ball bearing here. Just going to lube that with a little bit of oil. Put the ball bearing in. Now it's spinning nicely. And then we'll just put a couple drops on the spindle itself. Just like that. And in we go. Because this is a 20 weight oil. And I can already feel there's a little bit of hydraulic pressure saying I don't want to go back in there. But this little hole here should help with that. Or maybe not. No, there we go. Perfect. Okay, I'm impressed. This is very, very nice. So I'm going to recommend this. Hint, hint, wink, wink, whatever. If 3-in-1 Oil wants to sponsor the video, hey, send me an email. Probably still have a little bit too much in there. But once we get the platter on there, the pressure will release and we'll be good. All right. So there's your Spindle lubrication service. Okay. And I'm going to mount this back in the turntable. I shall return. Okay, we got the spindle put back in. I'm just going to tighten it a little bit here. Actually, use a bigger set of pliers on this. There. Spinning wonderfully. Okay, so next couple things we need to do is we are just going to clean the actual motor spindle. So let's plug it in. See how our motor is running too. So this one runs by pulling this lever down. So right now it's not moving. Pull it down and you can see it moving. Okay. It's your typical AC motor. And you do have access to those oiling, or that one oiling point there. So a little bit of alcohol on a Q-tip. And you just want to run that up and down the spindle here. This one's pretty clean actually. But there's always a, maybe I lied. There's a little bit of belt gunge under there. You can see how the alcohol dissolves it. There we go. Yeah, so a little bit of belt residue. Give that a final wipe, dry it up. I got a little bit of cotton swab around there. Just turn that motor off. Oh, you know what? You need the platter on this one to turn the motor off. There we go. And you can see it coming back, eh? That's how it turns the motor off. Once it goes all the way up. And now it's off. I got a little bit of cotton on there. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Next, you also want to clean the platter where the belt runs. Okay, you can see a little bit of where the belt runs there. It's, as long as it's smooth, you should be okay. But you know, a little bit of alcohol in a paper towel is what you need for that. And you just want to clean there. So you got a nice, clean, smooth surface that the belt grips onto. And if you have a situation where a belt has actually died around this, you're going to need something a little bit more aggressive. You're going to probably need to scrape it off with a razor blade and then use something like WD-40 to clean off the goo. And there you go, see? It's not perfectly clean. Well, the belt is clean because he just bought it, so... Okay. Alright, so we're just going to put our platter back on and put our belt around our motor. And just see how she's spinning. Just let that go around a little bit. And why don't we check our speed? Okay, 33 is slow. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is going backwards. Okay, so that could be a wrong size belt. It's definitely not the motor, because the motor is nice and quiet and running well. Most of the time it has to do with the thickness of the belt, the actual thickness of it, not how wide it is, but how thick it is. And that has an effect on the speed. Let's just check 45 as well. Are we on 45? Yeah, I don't think the belt is riding on the 45 spindle all the way. It's almost like this needs to go down a little bit. Back to 33. It's just a smidge slow, and it's riding a little high. So let's adjust that. First of all, let's cut. I just found that very neat to watch that come back. It's very mechanical. Yeah, so I think our belt's riding a little high here. And what we can do is adjust the height. I can find my screwdriver where this is riding. Let's brought it down a little bit. So this is basically your height adjustment, right? So, whoops, that's too far. Right, so you definitely want it riding around the middle of the spindle, right? Now, if I can get this freaking screw back in, there it goes. And that'll adjust your height. So I'm liking that a little better there. And now our 45 is kind of in the middle. I like that a lot better. Let's see if that's helped our speed at all. So you want to check that first. Let's see how that is. That help at all? Yes. Still a little slow. It's a little better though. Let's see how 45 is now. 45 is definitely better. It's still slow though. They're both a little slow. How's that? Yeah, once 33 locks in, it's just a smidge slow. So, what can you do in this case? Well, one of the first things you can do is you can buy a new belt, right? And you know, a lot of the belts you buy on eBay are close approximations of what the original factory belt was. And a lot of them are like universal belts. That's one option, is to try another belt. And this is a new belt. I'm sure this gentleman does not want to spend money on a new belt. So we're just going to give that motor spindle a little bit of circumference increasing. And what are we going to use for that? Well, we're going to use a little bit of nail polish. Nail polish dries very hard, okay, and it lasts, and it should last a good long time. But to do that, you got to make sure that what I did before, make sure that this motor is very clean, or the motor spindle, right? I'm just gonna do that again, just because I have touched it with my fingers. And we definitely want the paint to adhere properly, okay? So you want the motor spinning when you do this. Okay, so we're going to use a little bit. Just going to get that out of the way while I'm doing 33. So you want a little bit of paint, okay? And I mean a little bit. Because what we're going to do is we're going to increase it in increments. So we're just going to put a little bit on there. You want it spinning, that way it goes evenly. And you want to keep it spinning so it dries evenly, right? You don't want any lumps. All right, so what you do then, I'll do 45 as well, is you're going to let this dry. And once it's dry, you're going to put the belt back on and you're going to test it. And if it's still slow, you're going to apply another coat. And you're going to keep applying coats until you have the proper speed. All right, so let me pause. I'm going to let that dry. I don't literally watch paint dry. And I'll come right back. All right, welcome back. So it took 2 applications of the nail polish to get the speed where I like it. And that is just a absolute smidge fast without the record on it and the needle down. So once we drop that needle on there, it should slow it down and we should be perfect. Okay, so it took 2 applications in this. It may take more, it may take less on yours if you're having the same issue. Okay, so that is the speed done. Make sure your paint is dry before you put the belt on or you will ruin it. It's going to be a pain in the butt to clean. If you want, you can let that, dry for 24 hours. Make sure it's rock solid dry and it's hard, right? That's what you want. So for me, it's been about half an hour. So it's definitely dry to the touch, but I'll let it dry before I actually start doing some serious testing. But I think we are pretty much done with this. I think we should do a sound test on this one because everything is here. Someone has replaced the cables on this already. I have checked their soldering work and it is good. So hopefully there's good sound here. And we'll test out the KD and see how our auto return, all that good stuff is working. How's your vision here? Good. Okay, let's set up the arm while we're at it. Oh, I have cleaned this stylus and I'm not sure what was on it. I literally had to chisel it with a razor blade under a microscope just to get rid of the dirt on there. I don't know what it couldn't have been dirt. It almost looked like it was candy or something that had melted on there. Anyway, lots of copious alcohol in this one. And like I mentioned, a razor blade just gently chiseling at the diamond with hopefully not damaging it just to get it off. I've never seen a needle like that before. Okay, we're going to plug this in. Oh, these RCA cables are very tight. Ground. We'll just set up the arm. I think, you know what, it won't drop down until you hit start. There we go. Okay. So you're going to want to get level balance here. We're going to probably have to do this one with the digital. I don't like the way this counterweight's moving. Anti-skate's working, which is good. This is an AT71, which is kind of like a predecessor to the 1895. And it'll run at 2 grams. Yeah, I'm going to go with the digital scale on this one just because the counterweight is really moving back and forth on it. So I'm just going to zero this out. Yeah, this is a bit of a mess. I'm just going to kind of roll that up to 2 grams. See what we got here. It's a little too much. Close. Good. All right, that's 2 grams. And we'll set our anti-skating to 2. And we're going to see how she sounds. See if our muting works. I'm not sure how the muting works on this one, to be honest with you. It's on. It might be a muting circuit where once you hit start, actually we're on play right now. That's why the muting circuit's on. Whoa. That's odd. That's the muting circuit. I've never seen that before, where you actually plug in a turntable and you get a whole bunch of static through the speakers. Okay, so now it's off. Muting? Okay, yeah, it's definitely muted. So once we go play, yeah, the muting circuit turns on. Okay, this is semi-automatic, so you got to move it over yourself. I'm hearing a little bit of motor noise, I'll be honest with you. Come through the stylus. I can see by her eyes she's been waiting. I have lived alone. You just hear it just a little bit. Those are the faulty motor mounts. Let's just check auto return. I mean, once the record starts playing, you don't really hear it. I mean, I'd have to look and see if this thing actually has auto return or not. I'm not 100% sure. There has to be a trigger point, right? Unless it's just... Hang on a second. I'm just going to check the service manual. I'll be right back. Okay, this is indeed a semi-automatic. I did some adjusting. There's not a whole lot to adjust here. You just want to make sure the mechanism is moving correctly. So how it works, for those of you who are interested, when you press play on this, it obviously starts your mechanism there. And as the arm moves across, right here, this is attached to the arm, it is going to trip this detection circuit here, and it's going to push that forward and push this down, which is going to catch... There's a little, actually, it's on the floor. Under the platter, there's a little peg about this tall. It catches that, right? And the auto return mechanism kicks on, and it will kick this spring into action. Watch this. Stop playback, and the spring will kick the arm back, right? So it's all spring loaded. So I just made sure that I kept playing with the adjustment here a little bit, just to see exactly where our trip point is. And I think I've got it where I want it now. And I'll just give it another test here. I'm gonna actually put the belt back on so we can watch it in motion. I gotta say, this turntable's been a little tricky to work on. I don't do a lot of Kenwoods. I'm just going to start it and move it over and just catch. And watch it go. Hopefully it goes. Yeah, there it goes. There you go. That was not easy to work on. There's definitely some interesting things going on with that auto return mechanism. You really have to study the service manual. There's a lot of parts to it, and it's different than most, right? There's no cam like on 90% of the turntables. There's this very intricate spring mechanism there, but they always have an adjustment point, right? So, and according to the service manual, there is some lubrication service to be done on that auto return. So if you have one of these, make sure you study that, that service manual. But that's it for this one. That's the servicing of the KD-2055. Again, if you have motor mount issues, I will link that in the description. And have yourself a great day. Catch you in the next one.